Hey guys, OG Albina here, and it is time. The return of a fan favorite series on the channel. As many of you know, power creep is the single biggest problem in competitive singles Pokemon. Each coming generation, it seems like the Pokemon introduced get stronger and stronger, leaving the older, lesser Pokemon to languish in the background, never seeing the competitive light again. Because of this, I decided to make this series, in which I take some forgotten and unfortunately bad Pokemon that you all suggest in the comments. Go ahead and suggest them now in the comments. Go, quick, comment now. And bring them up to speed so that they can once again occupy a competitive niche. This series is therefore aptly called Fixing Your Favorites. First up, we have a Pokemon with one of the most convoluted evolution methods of all time. The Dark and Psychic Squid Pokemon, Malamar. Malamar has the benefit of having an incredible ability in Contrary, which is known for making mediocre Pokemon great. No, I don't mean Spinda, I'm talking about Superior. God, Spinda is really bad. Malamar just needs a little bit of a push in the right direction and it'll be right up there with Superior. First off, when it comes to Contrary, Malamar really only has Superpower as a boosting option. First off, we'll be adding Psycho Boost to its move pool as a way of boosting its special attack. As strong as a move like Psycho Boost sounds, it's nothing crazy on Malamar. Keep in mind, this is coming off a measly base 68 special attack stat. It's mostly here to give Malamar more options, and the instant +2 is pretty nice to mitigate its low special attack. Hammer Arm is the next move we'll be adding to its move pool, as another way of boosting up its stats, but this time, it's mediocre speed stats, so it can finally threaten teams after a few superpower boosts. Lastly, for move pool additions, we'll be adding Recover. It's not necessarily a contrary boost, but Recover would be an incredible boost to Malamar's longevity. Think of how obnoxious a Stall Breaker, a knockoff, superpower, taunt, and recover set would be. I'd also like to propose a new move for our tentacle friend. I always like to spice up these videos and introduce either a new mechanic or move to give more niches to our video subjects. Our first idea today is going to be a move called Ink Shot. As the name suggests, this move is very similar to Parting Shot in the sense that it lowers your opponent's stats before switching you out. But instead of lowering its special and physical attack stat, this move lowers your opponent's speed. This will provide great slow momentum to Malamar, on top of providing great speed control and anti-setup. I would also give this move to other squid Pokemon and octopus Pokemon like Tentacruel, Octillery, and Grapploct. To round it all out, we're gonna just slightly boost Malamar's base attack by 10, making it just a bit more scary offensively when it gets to boosted. Bam! Malamar is much more usable now. Next up, we have a Gen 1 OG in Sandslash. Our Sonic lookalike friend got a bit of love in Alola with its Ice-type Alolan form, but let's be honest, it wasn't that much of an upgrade. Let's try and make Sandslash itself more viable. Right now, Sandslash is seen by many as a subpar Sand Rush abuser, but we're going to lean more into its solid defensive stat and hazard setting ability. Sandslash already has a great 110 base defense, so we're going to put a little bit more emphasis on that bulk by raising its HP by 10 from 75 to 85. We'll also round out its bulk with a boost of 20 to its SPDEF from a terrible base 55 to 75, making its bulk overall much more serviceable. Next, we'll be changing its Sand Veil ability to Rough Skin. I mean, come on. The fact that they didn't give this guy with massive spikes on his back Rough Skin makes no sense. On top of this, we have to give him Spiky Shield. Again, come on, Game Freak. He is literally covered in spikes. Anyway, this iteration of Sandslash can spread some great passive damage. When trying to buff these Pokemon, I try to take the approach of not just blowing up their stats and move pool to make them overpowered and boring. It's too easy, and it's not interesting. Instead, I try to give them a solid niche that's realistic to its design. In this instance, it's going to be passive damage from the likes of Hazards, Rough Skin, Spiky Shield, and a potential Rocky Helmet. Speaking of Hazards, I have a really cool idea for Sandslash here. It already has access to both Spikes and Stealth Rocks, which is great, but I still think it can improve. I've decided to give Sandslash an all-exclusive new move I've named Spike Rush. Now, it's not all that strong, only base 65, but it makes up for its power with its amazing utility, as it will set up spikes when it makes contact with the opponent. This is an incredible boost for Sandslash. It can now spike while doing damage without the fear of being taunted. You will have to be wary of flying type switching in, but I think that's pretty easy to deal with. Also keep in mind there's a very similar move in the game, with Cleavor getting access to Stone Axe. These buffs should make Sandslash a passive damage dealing monster with these buffs. And the solid move pool it already has with moves like Earthquake, Rock Coverage, Rapid Spin, and Knockoff won't hurt either. Next up, we have a Pokemon I've personally loved in my Draft League experience in Lanturn. Despite my admiration for this solid pivot, it falls a bit flat in standardized metagames. This is often due to its middling defensive stats, despite its great HP. Therefore, our first fix to Lanturn will be giving it 20 in both of its defenses. I know that sounds lame, but I really think it's the most thematic change that we can make to Lanturn to make it decent. Moving up to 78 defense and 96 spadef on top of an incredible 125 HP stat makes this thing a phenomenal pivot on top of its 2 great abilities in Water and Volt Absorb. Speaking of abilities, they're Lanturn's strong suit, except for its third ability in Illuminate. Abilities that have no in-battle application have always irked me, therefore we're going to buff it. Illuminate will now work as Compound Ice does, giving a 1.3 times boost to its accuracy. While this may not be as consistently good as its immunity abilities, this will give rise to more offensive lanterns being viable. Now, on top of Water and Volt Absorb, you have to keep the idea in the back of your mind that this might be an agility lantern, throwing off more accurate, strong moves like Hydro Pump, Thunder, and Blizzard alongside their annoying secondary effects. More options is always better. And while this lantern is no world ender, I think it could be an incredible lower tier pivot and even cleaner in some instances. Next up we have LANDORUS wannabe in Claydol. All jokes aside, Claydol has some pretty incredible qualities, as evident by our meme here. So why is it bad? Simple, stats. It simply cannot keep up in such a fast offensive meta nowadays. First off, we'll be adding 15 to its HP stat, raising it from 60 to 75. This will help accentuate its incredible defensive stats in 105 and 120 respectively. We'll also be puffing its attacks by 10. Claydol already has an incredible move pool. It has a great stab combination with coverage options like Dazzling Gleam, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, and more. On top of that, it can even Calm Mind and Nasty Plot. The only issue is it's so passive and weak. A small buff to its offensive stats from 70 to 80 would be much appreciated. Speaking of its move pool, Claydol has an incredible support one as well. It can Dual Screen, Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, Trick Room, Trick, Teleport, and so much more. It's just missing a few moves to make it a great pick for your team. First up is Spikes. Every ground type and their mother got access to Spikes in Scarlet and Violet. Claydol is getting the same exact treatment, making it a rapid spinner who can set up both rocks and spikes, which is incredibly valuable. Next up, and most importantly, we'll be giving Claydol Recover. This thing getting reliable recovery as an Edgequake resist, Hazard Setter, Calm Mind, or Nasty Plot sweeper is incredible. Not being able to keep itself healthy is one of Claydol's biggest downsides, and we just fixed that. Plus, so many Psychic types get Recover solely for being a Psychic type. I don't see why Claydol can't get it as well. With these tools and a slight stat increase, I think Claydol could be incredible. Lastly, we have the head Honchkrow himself. This is a super cool mon that is unfortunately just bad. It has some incredible potential. It has a base 125 attack stat and access to Moxie to continually boost its attack with KOs. Dark and Flying is obviously a great stab combination offensively. I mean, look at monsters like Galarian Moltres and Yveltal. Plus, it has great coverage and fighting type superpowers. It can also pick off faster threats with Sucker Punch. It even has a base 105 special attack stat to run mixed variants as well. Where Honchkrow falls flat is its speed. It loses 20 speed in evolving from Murkrow to Honchkrow, making it easily revenged by anything that can eat up a Sucker Punch. Its base 52 defenses aren't helping either. So firstly, we'll be restoring its speed to Murkrow's and boosting it by 20. This will allow Honchkrow to occupy a great speed tier for a breaker and make it not as easily revenged. We'll also buff its defenses by 10 while we're here for a little bit more survivability. I've actually only got one more change in mind for Honchkrow, and that's access to Knockoff. Knockoff is an incredibly valuable tool for any physically offensive Dark type, especially when your only other Dark stab consists of the weak Night Slash and unreliable Sucker Punches. Plus, even if you're not doing big damage to something, removing something's item is such a great progress forcer, especially when dealing with defensive checks, knocking out their leftovers, rocky helmets, and heavy duty boots. On top of this, a ton of Pokemon lost Knockoff in Scarlet and Violet, like Crocodile and Weavile. So this lets Honchkrow occupy a niche as a strong stab knockoff user, making it much more usable overall. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fixing Your Favorites. I know it's been a while, but Scarlet and Violet like hype season is kind of winding down, and I'm not sick anymore, so I was comfortable writing a script and getting it out there and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, you gotta let me know what you want to see in the comments. I don't care if you've commented it before. You gotta comment it again. Let me know what Pokemon you want to see next. I have been getting Sandslash comments since the first episode, and I kept seeing it, and I was like, you know what? Let's fix our boy here. So if you want to see your favorite Pokemon buff, continue to comment it down below. Get your friends to comment. Sub if you're new. I would really appreciate it. We're on our way to 2,000 subs, and I'd appreciate it a ton if you help me out. And yeah, that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.